Hi, everyone, and welcome to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode number 58. Today's title of today's episode is Media Blackout During an Economic Collapse. And a lot has gone on last night. I mean, Syria their internet was completely down for the entire country, and there was no information going in or out. And it was very difficult to find information about what was going on in Syria. And this morning, Syria's internet came back, and there's still no information. They're blaming it on, there was a problem with an optical cable, or it was cut, and they're trying to, get to the bottom of it. But looking at all the submarine maps and all the maps, there are three cables that connect to the country Syria. So if one goes down, they have other ways of still receiving internet. So, and there was another firm. I'm going to try to pronounce their name here. It's like akakamai.com, and their consultant, also the umbrella security consultants, also said that they're not buying that story because they do have other cables coming in, and I put that on the on this page and also on the Sentinel alerts, showing you that there are three cables coming into Tartus, or around the city of Tartus in Syria. And right now, CNN had one story on there, and it seems like all the stories are just a rehash of the same story, but there's no real answers. There's nothing that is really coming out, or what has happened during this blackout period. And what I find very interesting is that no one was really reporting it. I mean, an entire country goes dark, nothing. And but for everything else, like rebel soldiers, or they might have used chemical, it's a front page news. But an entire country loses internet, and we're so concerned with the rebels and the Syrian people, and they're going to cross a red line because we want to protect them, but no one's concerned that entire country is completely, with news going back and forth, is completely dark. It makes no sense whatsoever. But before we get into that and other things with the cyber attacks, again, for these next couple of days, I am following the cyber attacks. I know Anonymous and jihadists, and there was a warning in May 7th, and they said during this week they're going to hit different financial institutions. So I'm going to follow it, and let's see what happens during this week. We know there is a major cyber attack coming. When it will be, we don't know for sure, but we know they are building up for this event. And let's just get into the current news. And it looks like Chinese gold imports are soaring to a monthly record high. And if you look at the graph, I have this on the X22 site. China in March bought like 223 tons of gold, compared to February, which was like 97 tons of gold. So that is a lot of gold. And it's amazing that they're buying so much gold, because they're telling us that gold is in a bubble. They smack down gold, and they're telling you to sell. Goldman Sachs is coming out and telling you to sell your gold. But why are they buying all this gold? They're not the only ones. Central banks, other countries are asking for their gold back. Gold is the only real money. Paper is just that, paper. And on Sentinel alerts, I had it was a report from Zero Hedge watching the collapse of fiat currency, and it really gives you a good graph, and it really shows you, going back from the 60s to today, how much the dollar has gone down over that time. And if you overlap that graph with gold, gold is going the opposite way, and the dollar is heading down. So you can see which is which is real money and which is currency. Because if you take an ounce of gold back in the 60s and you took, um, you know, let's just say a 10 or a $20 bill, and you held both of them to right now, which would have more buying power? The ounce of gold or the $20 bill? Well, I'm going to tell you right now that ounce of gold is 1,400, and I believe back then you were able to buy it for like $35. The $20 bill, I mean, can't even fill up your gas tank. So you can see which is the real money, and this has been proven over thousands and thousands of years. That's why you don't see people collecting old fiat currency. Do you ever see that? Oh, look, I have all this old fiat currency. It's going to be worth something someday. No, because it's paper and ink. But those people who collect gold or silver or, jewelry, it's worth something. Now, Lord Monckton and Peter Schiff are telling us the dollar is toast. Crash that is coming will be orders of magnitude worse than 2008. Prepare for your years without food. And I'm hearing this a lot, that food is going to be very hard to come by when this crash hits. And this article goes on to say, so what do you have to do to protect yourself and your family? First, get rid of every dollar you have. Dollars are now all but worthless. When the crash comes, they will have no value at all. And, of course, they're telling you to buy, silver, gold, and also buy land. Make sure you have enough food. Make sure you have gasoline. And because when this crash hits, all of these things are going to be very hard to come by, and especially those people who don't have gold or silver or food and water, fuel, medical supplies stocked up, it is going to be very hard to come by. And, just think of all those people that are sleeping and not awake, and all of a sudden, just like the Great Depression, one day everything is fine. La-di-da-di-da-di-da-di-da, and I'm just going along in my life. The next day, the market crashes, and everyone's in a panic. In Cyprus, one day you're going around fine. Oh, I got 500,000 euros in the bank, everything's good. The next day, the banks are closed. Capital controls are put into place. The same thing is going to happen here. It's going to happen that quickly, and people are going to be shocked. And of course, they're not going to believe in the beginning. They're going to think, oh, okay, it's just temporary. In about 3 days or so, we'll just go on with our lives. But you know what's going to happen. It's just going to get worse. Because I remember back in 2008, and I watched the news, and I hear all these, financial people on there, and they're saying, oh, the recession will only last until like January, February of 2009, and then it'll be fine. And then when January, February came, oh, the recession will only last till September of 2009, and everything will be fine. And they kept on saying this because they had no clue what they were talking about. We are still in a recession. Yeah, they can manipulate it and cover it up and pretend it's not happening. But you know what? In your lives, you can pretend a lot of things aren't happening. Like a leak in a pipe. You can pretend it's not happening, but guess what? The pipe's still leaking. You still got to take care of it. The economy is suffering. The economy is, I believe, is in a depression right now. We just have it completely covered up with this money printing, because Ben Bernanke is doing the opposite of what happened in the Great Depression, where they contracted the money. So he decided to print money and make the stock market rise to highs that we've never ever seen before. And I heard this before: as the stock market moves up, the people get poor, and I do believe that. And as the stock market goes up, we're just going to have a further um, fall down into a huge, huge, huge crisis. So, I mean, all you got to do is take the stock market graph, flip it upside down, and that's going to be the crash. Okay, moving on. Now, this was a blurb that I saw, and this came out of, let me just see here. It came out of the stream of the Wall Street Journal. And it says, on Tuesday, Israeli soldiers held exercises near Syria. Now, is this a coincidence that on Tuesday there was also a blackout in Syria with the internet? And this is what it said, and after I linked it and everything, it's very hard to find. The Pentagon is stepping up plans to deal with dangerous regional spillover from Syria's possible collapse, drawing up proposals including a Jordanian buffer zone for refugees secured by the Arab troops. Israeli soldiers held exercises in the Golan Heights near Syria on Tuesday. The Pentagon is stepping up plans to deal with I just read that, I'm sorry. And it goes on, the plans seek to minimize direct U.S. involvement, but, and then it cuts off. And I found this very interesting. And if anyone has any more on this, email it to me or send it to me or make a comment in the People, because I like to see the rest of this and what it says and what they're going to do. But I thought that was a very interesting, that, for the possible collapse, they already know that there's going to be a collapse of Syria. Gee, I wonder how they know that. Now, another story, because you have to remember, the government, central bankers, the collapse is coming. So to hide the collapse, they need wars. So we have China and Japan fighting over this island. We have North Korea, South Korea, and the U.S. We have the U.S., Israel, Syria, Russia, China, Iran, all together, all starting wars all over the place. And now China is coming out and saying that Okinawa is really their island. And you can just see that this is starting to escalate, and things will start getting out of hand. And they just want this war to get started, and they're going to provoke all of these countries to get something going. Because if they don't, who are we all going to blame on this collapse? Well, the government and then the central bankers. And, they can't have this. They don't want to be blamed. So they're going to have to blame it on another nation for the problems here. Now, there was an article about gun control and statistics and how the mainstream media misleads the public into believing that assault rifles are, the huge killers of people and children. But when you break it down here and you really see how many, like here it says 348 deaths from rifles. So when they're talking about assault rifles, only 348 are from rifles. Even so, of just firearm deaths is 9,146. And if you look at deaths from other causes or other things, heart disease, 597,000. Cancer, 574,000 per year. This is all per year. Strokes, 129,000. Suicides, 38,000. Overall weapons, 13,000. Firearms, 9,000. So, to make the American people believe that this is a major, major, major problem, it really isn't. And they're showing everyone that It is, because if you look at this, knives and cutting tools accounted for 1,800 deaths. So should we ban all knives and cutting tools? So what they're saying is ridiculous. I mean, even clubs and hammers, 611. So the mainstream media blows everything out of proportion to fit the agenda of the government. That's all they're doing. That's all they've ever done. And whatever, again, I've said this before, whenever they say something, it is always the opposite. Now, what we know, CISPA is pending in the Senate. It passed the House. But Obama says he'll veto that bill if it reaches his desk. Which I find very interesting, because he created the executive orders already that support CISPA. So why would he veto it? And Obama also supports internet wiretapping. He supports internet wiretapping, but he'll veto CISPA. You see how all this doesn't make sense? They make no sense. And people just hear this and, oh, don't worry, Obama's going to veto that, but he approves wiretapping on the internet. They want a backdoor into all the sites and to everything so they can easily wiretap. Yeah, that's what we need to give the government, a backdoor into everything. Again, Fourth Amendment. This is going far beyond what they're allowed to do. I mean, they are just taking our rights and flushing it down the toilet. And Obama, I would be shocked if he vetoes CISPA with everything else. But the NDAA is okay. CISPA is no good, but NDAA is okay. Patriot Act is okay. The Miranda exception rule he likes. The internet wiretapping he likes, but CISPA he doesn't like. But I'll create the executive orders for CISPA. Does this make any sense to anybody? Just listen to what they're saying. It makes no sense whatsoever. Now, moving on. Now, we've been tracking these cyber attacks, and I watch it pretty much all day long, and I like to see what's going on. And I put up a snapshot of what's going on, and I see the U.S. is getting hit by cyber attacks a lot more today than it was yesterday, and all over the world, actually. I notice it has gone up from what we had yesterday, and that's why I just want to keep track, because I just want to see, what is going. Like right now, USA is getting hit quite a bit, and it just continuing, and this is in California right now where they're getting hit right now. So I'm just following this to see how this plays out, because what I'm thinking, and this might be nothing, of course, but when the DHS comes out and says, we're looking at the cyber attack, but it's not that big of a deal, it'll be a nuisance, just everyone, probably nothing, don't worry about it. I'm thinking the opposite. And when is a good time to do the cyber attack? Tell everyone it's May 7th. Tell everyone, Islamic jihadists, extreme groups, anonymous, whatever group they want to blame it on, Iran, North Korea, doesn't make a difference. Have Syria be blacked out with the internet, which is very coincidental that it happened during this week, I find. We also have a report coming in that the Dutch government websites were out for hours from cyber attacks. And I think what they might be doing is telling everyone May 7th. Everyone is all prepared May 7th. Nothing happens. Something happens Tuesday night, like the Dutch government, Syria blackout. Nothing, not much happens on Thursday. And then Friday in the afternoon sometime, we get our major hit. Because they did tell us what banks, something doesn't seem right in what they're saying and what they're doing. Because DHS is warning us about this, but there's no alerts on their site. How convenient. And they're telling us it just might be a nuisance thing. And when anyone tells you it might be just a nuisance thing, it's the opposite of what they're saying. And this might not happen Friday. It might happen next week, but I feel like something will happen very soon just from their announcement and from what I'm seeing and how things are escalating. And, you know, we just have to be on a lookout of what's going on. So there was another article that came out that has to do with cyber attacks. Advanced cyber attack tools seen as readily available to hackers. And this was just today. And what they're saying is dozens of countries now have sophisticated cyber espionage capabilities, and terrorists want to digitally sabotage U.S. power grids or water supply networks. And this came from the FBI Cyber Division. And they're telling us that they now have the ability to do all of this that they were saying before. They were telling us that, in the future they could take out our power grid, but now the FBI is telling us they already have the tools. So to me, this is a buildup of what is coming. And President Barack Obama and his intelligence officials have said one of their top policy priorities is preventing cyber attacks that could disrupt banks, telecommunications, infrastructure like power grid, water, and other vital services. So something is happening. Something is going on, and we see that we are going to have some type of an event. Now, I told everyone before May 7th to take some money out of the bank, have food, have water. This is still, this doesn't stop just because it didn't happen when they said it was going to happen. Because if it happens a week, 2 weeks from now, you will always be prepared. Just like a storm coming, or they're saying a hurricane's coming in a week or so. You always need to be prepared. And we don't know what this cyber attack will be. This might just be something where it wakes the people up and just lets them know that cyber attacks are now on the table, because most of the people who are asleep and not awake, they have no clue what's going on. If you told someone cyber attack, they go, what? What are you talking about? They have absolutely no clue what is going on. And to clue them in, they have to do something to shock them. Just a little bit. And get it all over the news. Especially the TV news. And this will wake everyone up. And then the major cyber attack could happen. Can take place. Now, there is a drill planned in Pennsylvania at Dorney Park, Wildwater Kingdom in Pennsylvania on May 13th. Again, every time we see some type of drill, something happens. And this is very interesting because what they're doing here in Dorney Park is that the drill is sponsored by the Northeast Pennsylvania Regional Counterterrorism Task Force, will center on an emergency incident at the amusement park in South Whitehall Township, replicating a hazardous condition with multiple casualties during the peak of the park's summer season, according to Township News release. So they're going to have the emergency crews, they're going to have, all the people there, and they're going to simulate a horrific event with many people, killed or maimed or injured and whatnot. So this is going to be very interesting, and we need to watch out for this. Now, just talking about the media blackout, I notice whenever there are events, the media always has some other story on there. Like, I know I mentioned this in the beginning about the Syria internet blackout, but they instead, that had nothing to do. There was no story on it. There were stories and stories and stories about Syria with chemical weapons, with the rebels, with Assad's, death, and everything else was always front page. But an entire country. The internet goes down. They're in the dark. There are rebels fighting. There could be chemical weapons. Israel bombed Damascus. Not one word of what's going on there? Does that seem strange? I mean, the front page news is about the Cleveland victims coming home. That's the biggest news they have. It makes no sense to me. It's a media blackout because they don't want you to know what they have planned and why the internet went down, what is going on there, and what you're going to see happen in the next couple of days or weeks, because they have just planned something and they are working on something. So basically, we need to be ready, prepared, because the media doesn't want us to know what is going on out in the world. They cover up things, and there's always a distraction going on when something major is happening. I mean, we also had the Benghazi trials, and you think that would be front page news, but no, that wasn't front page news either. It's always buried or not reported, and they always put up this fake, not a fake, but a story that really doesn't affect all of us. And they just keep running that all day long, all day long. And I checked on CNN, Fox, USA Today. It was all the same story. And not one story on what was going on over the night till today. Still really nothing. You really have to look for it to find it. Listen, everyone, be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.